We're talking about a few thousand jars and lids. We need to do a purchase order of 1 million.
Rosé sold out also in less than an hour.
44 minutes. I was shocked. Then we prepped for the second seasonal drop and 10x'd our inventory. That sold out in a couple hours. This is your baby and this is your brand. That was a crew of 80 people.
And the plan is to go global.
Yes, absolutely.
Meghan Markle just sat down with Bloomberg expecting to showcase her business empire and convince the world she's this savvy entrepreneur. But what happened instead was 8 absolutely devastating moments where her business claims fell apart so spectacularly that you'll be laughing and cringing simultaneously. From claiming her rose sold out in exactly 44 minutes to insisting she went from thousands to millions of units in just months, Meghan served up business fantasy after business fantasy with complete confidence. And wait until you see what happens in claim number 4, when she starts talking about her Netflix relationship. Let's just say the contradiction between what she claims and what she accidentally admits is so jaw-dropping that you'll need to rewind just to make sure you heard it correctly. We've analyzed every single business claim from this interview, and her own words expose just how fake these stories actually are. So buckle up, because we're about to witness 8 moments where Meghan Markle accidentally exposed that her business empire might be built on nothing more than wishful thinking. Let's dive straight into what might be the most absurd business claim in this entire interview, and that's saying something considering the competition. Meghan wants us to believe that her rose product achieved something that would make even the most successful viral marketing campaigns jealous. She's claiming that her luxury lifestyle product sold out in exactly 44 minutes, and the way she presents this supposed achievement reveals just how disconnected from business reality she actually is. Now, for context, we're talking about a relatively unknown lifestyle brand launching a seasonal product with no established customer base, no major retail partnerships, and presumably a limited marketing budget. This isn't Apple releasing a new iPhone or Nike dropping limited edition sneakers with millions of devoted customers waiting in digital lines. This is As Ever, a brand most people had never heard of before this interview, supposedly generating enough consumer demand to completely exhaust their inventory in under an hour. The suspicious specificity of 44 minutes is the first red flag. Not approximately 45 minutes, not within an hour, but precisely 44 minutes. This level of detail suggests either incredibly sophisticated real-time tracking systems or a number that's been carefully crafted for maximum impact rather than reflecting actual sales data.
Rosé sold out also in less than an hour.
44 minutes. I was shocked.
But here's where her claim starts falling apart completely. For a brand new lifestyle product to sell out in 44 minutes, you'd need massive pre-existing demand, sophisticated marketing campaigns, celebrity endorsements, or some combination of factors that create genuine urgency among consumers. Yet Meghan presents this as if it happened organically through word of mouth and social media buzz alone. The mathematics of her claim don't make sense either. Even if we assume they had a modest inventory of a few thousand units, selling that volume in 44 minutes would require an average of dozens of transactions per minute, consistently, without any system crashes or payment processing delays. That's the kind of traffic and conversion that requires enterprise-level e-commerce infrastructure and customer service capabilities.
How do you keep up with demand?
When you sell out that quickly, it's a double-edged sword because it's an incredible thing to happen for any small business.
What makes this claim even more questionable is how she describes being shocked by the sellout speed. If you're running a business and you genuinely don't know how much demand exists for your product, that suggests a fundamental lack of market research, customer analysis, or business planning. Successful entrepreneurs typically have sophisticated projections about demand, conversion rates, and inventory needs. But the real knockout punch to her credibility comes when she explains that selling out so quickly was actually a problem because they couldn't gather proper metrics and learnings about which products were most coveted. This suggests that either her inventory tracking systems are completely inadequate, or she's making up these numbers without understanding how actual e-commerce analytics work.
And at the same time, you don't get the same metrics and learnings about which SKUs and products are the most coveted.
The whole story becomes even more absurd when you realize that if a luxury lifestyle brand genuinely experienced this level of explosive demand, it would generate significant media coverage, social media buzz, consumer conversations, and industry attention. Viral product launches create hashtags, waiting lists, reseller markets, and widespread cultural awareness. Yet As Ever seems to have achieved unprecedented sellout speeds without creating any of the typical indicators that accompany genuine viral success. This isn't just about questioning one sales figure. This is about recognizing when someone constructs business narratives that sound impressive but collapse under basic scrutiny. The 44-minute sellout story is either a massive exaggeration or a complete fabrication, and either way it exposes how Meghan approaches business credibility with the same casual relationship to facts that we've seen in other areas of her public life. But the 44-minute sellout was just the beginning of Meghan's mathematical madness. What she says next takes her credibility from questionable to completely absurd, and it all revolves around a business decision that apparently defies every principle of retail planning and inventory management that successful companies use to actually stay profitable. Meghan claims that after the initial Rose sellout, they prepared for their second seasonal drop by multiplying their inventory by 10 times. Let's pause here and think about what this actually means in business terms. If they started with a few thousand units and then multiplied by 10, we're talking about suddenly managing tens of thousands of units with all the associated costs, storage requirements, supply chain complexity, and financial risk that comes with that scale. But here's where her story becomes completely unbelievable. She insists that this 10 times larger inventory, which they expected to last for weeks based on normal retail projections, somehow sold out in just a couple of hours. This would represent one of the most explosive demand spikes in consumer goods history, yet she presents it as if it's just another Tuesday in the life of As Ever.
Then we prepped for the second seasonal drop and 10x'd our inventory and thought for sure that would at least last for a couple weeks.
The logistics alone make this claim impossible to believe. Multiplying inventory by 10 doesn't just mean ordering more product. It means securing 10 times the warehouse space, 10 times the packaging materials, 10 times the shipping capacity, and 10 times the customer service infrastructure to handle the volume. Small lifestyle brands don't casually scale up by a factor of 10 without massive operational changes and significant capital investment. But even if we pretend that the infrastructure could magically handle this scaling, the demand mathematics still don't work. For tens of thousands of units to sell out in a couple of hours, you'd need thousands of simultaneous transactions processing successfully without any website crashes, payment failures, or fulfillment bottlenecks. This is enterprise-level e-commerce volume happening on what she describes as a small startup systems.
That sold out in a couple hours.
What makes this story even more suspicious is the complete absence of any visible cultural impact from this supposed phenomenon. When consumer products experience the kind of explosive demand Meghan is describing, it creates massive social media buzz, news coverage, influencer content, and widespread consumer awareness. People talk about it, share it, and create content around the experience of trying to purchase these highly coveted items. Yet As Ever seems to have achieved unprecedented sellout speeds without generating any of the typical digital footprint that accompanies genuine viral consumer demand. There are no trending hashtags, no frustrated customers posting about website crashes, no reseller markets emerging, and no widespread cultural conversation about these supposedly impossible-to-get products. The timeline she's describing would also require a level of operational sophistication that contradicts everything else she says about the business. She presents As Ever as this personal, artisanal brand, where she's intimately involved in recipe development and quality control, but then claims it can process tens of thousands of orders in hours without any operational hiccups.
And suddenly the conversation goes from a few thousand jars and lids to we need to do a purchase order of 1 million.
This 10 times inventory story isn't just an exaggeration, it's a fundamental misunderstanding of how retail businesses actually operate. Successful companies carefully analyze demand patterns, conduct market research, and make incremental scaling decisions based on data and customer behavior. They don't randomly multiply inventory by arbitrary factors and hope for the best. The fact that Meghan presents this as a logical business decision rather than recognizing how absurd it sounds reveals either complete ignorance about retail operations or a casual relationship with truth that extends to every aspect of her business narrative. Either way, it exposes that her supposed business empire might exist more in her imagination than in any verifiable reality. Just when you think Meghan's business claims can't get any more ridiculous, she delivers what might be the single most absurd statement in the entire interview. After describing her supposedly explosive inventory scaling, she makes a claim that's so mathematically impossible and logistically insane that it exposes just how completely detached from business reality she actually is. Meghan claims that their conversations have now shifted from discussing thousands of units at the start of the year to needing purchase orders for millions of units. Let's break down exactly what she's suggesting happened to her little jam and rose business in the span of just a few months, because the numbers she's throwing around would put As Ever in the same league as major consumer packaged goods companies with decades of market presence. A purchase order for 1 million units isn't just a big number, it's a commitment that would require massive manufacturing capacity, enormous capital investment, sophisticated supply chain management, and enterprise-level distribution networks. We're talking about the kind of scaling that takes established companies years to achieve if they ever reach those numbers at all. But here's what makes this claim so devastatingly stupid. To justify a 1,000,000-unit purchase order, you need verifiable demand from established retail partners, confirmed distribution agreements, or overwhelming consumer pre-orders that guarantee sales. You don't just randomly decide to manufacture 1,000,000 units of artisanal jam because you had a couple of good online drops. The financial implications alone make this story impossible. Manufacturing 1,000,000 units would require millions of dollars in upfront costs for materials, production, packaging, and storage. The working capital requirements would be enormous, and no legitimate manufacturer would accept such an order without significant financial guarantees and proven demand validation. Storage and logistics for 1,000,000 units would require warehouse facilities measured in hundreds of thousands of square feet. We're talking about industrial-scale distribution centers with sophisticated inventory management systems, not the kind of operation someone runs out of their Montecito lifestyle brand headquarters.
And that's a huge jump in just a few months of starting a business.
What's even more absurd is that Meghan presents this 1,000,000-unit conversation as if it's a natural progression from her earlier claims about selling a few thousand units. There's no recognition of the massive operational, financial, and logistical gulf between these scales of business. It's like claiming you went from riding a bicycle to piloting a commercial airliner in a few months. The complete absence of any visible infrastructure to support this supposed scaling exposes how fictional this entire narrative really is. If as ever genuinely needed 1,000,000-unit manufacturing capacity, there would be job postings, facility expansions, industry partnerships, and supply chain announcements. None of that exists because none of this is real. But perhaps the most damaging aspect of this 1,000,000-unit fairy tale is how it contradicts everything else Meghan says about her business approach. She emphasizes the artisanal quality, the personal recipe development, and the intimate connection between her home cooking and the final products. You can't maintain artisanal quality and personal touch while manufacturing millions of units through industrial-scale operations.
I'm exasperated in some ways by that only because it is such a tedious proposition to scale your own home recipe to something at mass and maintain the same, not just quality, but the same flavor that you're able to do at home.
The 1,000,000-unit claim isn't just an exaggeration or a moment of wishful thinking. It's a fundamental misunderstanding of how consumer businesses actually scale and grow. Successful companies build infrastructure gradually, validate demand carefully, and make scaling decisions based on data rather than fantasy. This claim alone should make anyone question every other business story Meghan tells, because someone who thinks 1,000,000-unit purchase orders are a reasonable next step from 1,000-unit inventory clearly doesn't understand the first thing about retail operations, supply chain management, or basic business planning. It's not just fake, it's embarrassingly ignorant of how the real world actually works. Now we've reached the moment you've been waiting for, and trust me, this contradiction is so spectacular that you'll need to hear it twice to fully appreciate how completely Meghan destroys her own narrative about being an independent entrepreneur. What she reveals about her Netflix relationship exposes the entire fiction behind her supposed business empire. Meghan starts by painting this picture of herself as an empowered business owner who maintains complete creative control while Netflix simply provides supportive infrastructure. She wants us to believe that she's calling all the shots, making all the strategic decisions, and driving the direction of her business empire, while Netflix just writes checks and stays out of her way. The way she describes the arrangement makes it sound like the perfect partnership for an independent entrepreneur. Netflix supposedly told her this is her baby and her brand, giving her final say on all creative decisions and business directions. It's exactly the kind of story that would appeal to anyone who values authenticity and creative independence.
They very graciously said, no, this is your baby and this is your brand. So all creative decisions and final decisions like that end up with me.
But then something absolutely devastating happens. As the conversation continues, Meghan starts revealing details about how this partnership actually works, and every single detail contradicts the independent entrepreneur image she just spent time crafting. She admits that Netflix's involvement goes far beyond simple financial backing. She reveals that Netflix is providing the suppliers, the manufacturing relationships, the consumer products expertise, the distribution networks, and essentially every piece of infrastructure that makes her business possible. If Netflix is controlling the supply chain, the manufacturing, and the distribution, in what meaningful sense is Meghan actually running an independent business?
They have a lot of incredible suppliers and manufacturers that they are comfortable working with.
The contradiction becomes even more devastating when she admits that her original plan was completely different. She wanted to build out her own team and execute everything on her own terms, which would have given her genuine control and potentially much more financial upside. But then Netflix made what she calls a compelling sell and convinced her to abandon her independence. This isn't the story of an empowered entrepreneur maintaining creative control. This is the story of someone who gave up their independence in exchange for corporate infrastructure while pretending they're still calling the shots.
That had been my plan. And And I thought that it would be great just to build out my own team and really do it purely on my terms.
What makes this contradiction so particularly damaging is the timing. Just days after this interview, major entertainment industry publications reported that the Netflix deal had been significantly restructured and downgraded. Instead of the exclusive supportive partnership she describes, they reportedly signed a much less valuable arrangement that allows them to shop projects elsewhere if Netflix passes. This means either Meghan wasn't being honest about the strength of their partnership during this interview, or she was completely unaware that their relationship was about to change dramatically. Either scenario raises serious questions about her business acumen and credibility.
Netflix is my partner and investor.
The Netflix partnership illusion exposes the fundamental problem with Meghan's entire business narrative. She wants to present herself as this independent, authentic entrepreneur while actually being completely dependent on corporate infrastructure. She wants credit for business success while outsourcing every aspect of actual business operations. This isn't just about one partnership arrangement. This is about recognizing when someone constructs a public image that's completely disconnected from reality. Meghan's supposedly independent business empire is actually just her licensing her name and image to Netflix's existing consumer products machine, while pretending to be an autonomous entrepreneur. Let's talk about another moment where Meghan's need to sound impressive completely backfires and exposes how she inflates every detail of her operation. When discussing her Netflix show production, she makes a claim about crew size that reveals either a fundamental misunderstanding of television production or another casual relationship with factual accuracy. Meghan wants us to believe that her lifestyle show required a crew of 80 people. She presents this as if it's just a normal detail that people forget, but anyone familiar with television production knows that 80 crew members represents a massive Hollywood blockbuster-level operation, not a simple cooking and lifestyle show.
And a huge crew, which I think people often forget. That was a crew of 80 people.
For context, most cooking shows and lifestyle programs operate with crews of 15 to 30 people, including camera operators, sound technicians, lighting crew, producers, and support staff. Even high-end cooking shows with elaborate setups rarely require more than 40 crew members total. A crew of 80 people would typically be reserved for major narrative productions, complex multi-location shoots, or shows requiring extensive special effects and post-production work. We're talking about the crew size you'd see on a major drama series or feature film, not someone making jam and arranging flowers.
So most of it in the pre-production was inspired by recipes that I love to make.
The logistics and costs of managing 80 crew members would be astronomical for a lifestyle brand show. Each crew member requires payment, insurance, catering, transportation, and coordination. The budget implications alone would make this claim financially ridiculous for the type of content she's producing. What makes this exaggeration particularly revealing is that it serves no purpose other than making her operation sound more important and impressive than it actually is. The quality of a lifestyle show has nothing to do with crew size, and most viewers would never think to ask about staffing levels.
It's a great question. A lot of prep.
This crew size claim fits perfectly with every other aspect of Meghan's business narrative. She consistently inflates numbers, exaggerates scale, and presents normal business operations as if they're unprecedented achievements. The 80-person crew story is just another example of someone who can't tell a simple story without making it sound like the most elaborate production in television history. But the real damage isn't just the exaggeration itself. It's what this pattern reveals about her approach to public credibility and business authenticity. Here's another moment where Meghan's business claims venture into pure fantasy territory. She confidently announces plans for global expansion while showing zero evidence of the infrastructure, partnerships, or operational capacity that would make international scaling even remotely possible for a startup lifestyle brand. When asked about As Ever's future, Meghan declares that the plan is definitely to go global, responding with enthusiastic certainty as if this is an inevitable next step rather than a massive undertaking that requires years of planning and millions in investment.
And the plan is to go global.
Yes, absolutely.
Global expansion for consumer goods requires established distribution networks, international shipping logistics, customs compliance, local market research, currency management, and regulatory approvals in each target country. Most successful brands spend years building domestic market share before attempting international expansion, but Meghan presents going global as if it's just a matter of deciding to ship products internationally. She shows no awareness of the operational complexity, financial requirements, or strategic planning that legitimate global expansion demands.
Do you want to see it at Target or Williams-Sonoma or?
I think a key retail partner is going to be very valuable.
What makes this global expansion claim particularly absurd is that she admits they don't even have basic domestic retail partnerships figured figured out yet. She's still trying to identify which retail partners make sense for different product categories, but somehow she's confident about conquering international markets. The contradiction is staggering. You can't have a coherent global expansion strategy when you're still figuring out whether your products belong at Target or Williams-Sonoma. These are fundamental distribution questions that should be resolved long before considering international markets.
You might have exclusivity in certain ones that make sense for the consumables, but as you expand into candles or things throughout the home, where do those live that it makes sense?
The casual way she discusses global expansion while simultaneously revealing basic strategic confusion about domestic retail placement exposes how disconnected her business planning is from operational reality. She's making grand international pronouncements while struggling with elementary retail strategy decisions. This global expansion fantasy fits perfectly with every other aspect of Meghan's business narrative. She consistently makes ambitious claims about the future while showing little understanding of the practical steps required to achieve those goals. It's all vision with zero viable execution strategy. Here's where Meghan reveals just how disconnected she is from basic market research and customer analysis. When discussing the mixed reviews her Netflix show received, she makes claims about knowing her audience that expose either complete ignorance about consumer behavior or willful blindness to criticism. Meghan dismisses negative feedback by claiming she knows exactly who she was trying to reach and that her target demographic loves the show. She presents this audience certainty as if it's based on sophisticated market analysis, but her explanation reveals someone who's never done actual customer research.
I think I knew who I was trying to meet. And so if you know your audience, you know your demographic, well, they love the show.
But here's the problem with her audience certainty claims. She provides zero data, metrics, or verifiable evidence to support her assertions about demographic loyalty. She just declares that her audience loves the show because it validates her business narrative, not because she has actual customer feedback systems in place. The way she dismisses critics is particularly revealing. She suggests that people saying negative things might secretly be going home and making her recipes anyway. This isn't market analysis, it's wishful thinking disguised as business strategy.
So I think oftentimes the negative voices, are they saying the negative things and then secretly going home and making single skillet spaghetti? Possibly.
What makes this audience certainty delusion so damaging is that it prevents any real business learning or improvement. If you're convinced that criticism comes from people who secretly love your product, you'll never address actual market feedback or customer concerns. Successful businesses constantly analyze customer behavior, track satisfaction metrics, conduct focus groups, and adapt based on real consumer feedback. They don't just assume their target audience loves everything and dismiss negative responses as irrelevant.
And that's why we have a season 2 and why we have more fun coming.
The most telling aspect of her audience certainty claims is how they contradict everything else she says about learning from customer feedback and business metrics. Earlier, she complained about not getting proper analytics from her sellout speeds, but now she's completely confident about audience response without any supporting data. This pattern reveals someone who uses market certainty claims to avoid confronting uncomfortable truths about product reception and business performance. It's not confidence based on data, it's defensive denial masquerading as business acumen. Our final stop on this tour of business delusion reveals how Meghan contradicts herself when it comes to pricing strategy and target market positioning. She wants to present herself as someone who understands both luxury branding and accessibility, but her explanations expose someone who's confused about basic market positioning. Meghan tells this touching story about remembering her teenage self wanting to buy BB shirts, and how this inspired her to price products accessibly. She positions her $9 jam as something her 15-year-old self could afford, presenting this as evidence of her connection to regular consumers.
So there is something I think really important in that the first hero product was this $9 jar of jam, which my 15-year-old self would have been able to buy.
But here's where her pricing strategy story falls apart completely. BB was never a budget brand, and rhinestone BB shirts were luxury items for teenagers. Someone who could afford designer teenage clothing wasn't exactly struggling to buy $9 specialty food products. The contradiction reveals itself when she discusses her actual target market. She talks about premium positioning, luxury packaging, and aspirational branding, while simultaneously claiming accessibility is her primary concern. You can't be both a luxury lifestyle brand and genuinely accessible to budget-conscious consumers.
And if you could get the one with the rhinestone BB, you really made it. And I always think about that version of me.
What makes this pricing contradiction particularly damaging is how it exposes the manufactured nature of her relatability narrative. She's using childhood designer shopping experiences as evidence of understanding financial constraints, which is exactly backward from how actual financial awareness develops. The $9 jam price point isn't actually accessible for most families dealing with genuine budget constraints. That's premium specialty food pricing, not mass market affordability. Her understanding of accessibility seems limited to making luxury products slightly less expensive, rather than actually actually serving budget-conscious consumers.
Standpoint, I know where I came from. I remember being in high school and having my after-school job, and all I wanted to do was save up to buy a shirt that said BB.
This pricing strategy contradiction perfectly encapsulates everything wrong with Meghan's business narrative. She consistently tries to position herself as understanding regular consumers, while revealing experiences and perspectives that are completely disconnected from normal financial realities. The entire pricing explanation is another example of someone constructing business stories that sound good in interviews but collapse under basic scrutiny. She's not actually serving accessible markets or understanding budget-conscious consumers. She's just making luxury products slightly cheaper while pretending it represents genuine accessibility. 8 absolutely devastating moments where Meghan Markle's business claims didn't just fall apart, they exploded into complete fiction right before our eyes. From the mathematically impossible 44-minute sellouts to the logistically absurd million-unit purchase orders, from the Netflix partnership illusion to the global expansion fantasies, every single claim she made revealed someone who's either completely disconnected from business reality or comfortable fabricating success stories. What makes this Bloomberg interview so particularly damaging isn't just the individual lies and exaggerations. It's the pattern it reveals about how Meghan approaches credibility, authenticity, and public trust. She consistently inflates numbers, exaggerates achievements, and presents normal business operations as unprecedented successes, all while seeming genuinely convinced that no one would question the basic mathematics or logistics. The most telling aspect of these 8 exposed claims is how they reveal someone who's constructed an entire business persona around fictional narratives. The 44-minute sellouts that defy retail logic, the inventory scaling that ignores operational reality, the million-unit fantasies that contradict basic supply chain principles, and the partnership arrangements that expose complete dependence while claiming independence. But perhaps the most damaging revelation is how these business fabrications connect to everything else we've seen from Meghan over the years. This isn't just about questionable sales figures or exaggerated crew sizes. This is about recognizing a pattern of someone who constructs multiple versions of reality depending on what narrative serves their interests at any given moment. The Bloomberg interview was supposed to establish Meghan as a serious entrepreneur and business leader. Instead, it exposed someone whose relationship with factual accuracy is so casual that she can't keep basic business claims consistent within a single conversation. When someone's success stories sound more like fairy tales than real commerce, when their scaling claims defy mathematical logic, and when their partnership descriptions contradict obvious operational realities, you have to question everything else they've told us. What was the most absurd business claim for you? Was it the 44-minute miracle sellout, the million-unit fairy tale, or the Netflix independence illusion? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let us know which moment made you realize just how fake these business stories really are. Smash that like button if this investigation opened your eyes to how celebrity business narratives get constructed. Hit subscribe and ring that notification bell because we're just getting started with these deep dives into the stories celebrities tell about their success. And stick around because the next video is already loaded with even more explosive revelations that will have you questioning everything you thought you knew about celebrity business empires.